Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël.
Officials from Qatar have decided that they are not going to comply with a request from the special prosecutor's office to turn over information that they have on Jared Kushner and other Trump associates who were trying to basically create these back channels between other countries in the United Arab Emirates. They were having secret meetings with officials from the United Arab Emirates, and they were conducting business deals for their private businesses while being there as official government representatives. The reason these officials are trying to shield Jared Kushner from Robert Mueller's grasp is because they've said that they're worried if they turn over this information that obviously has information about criminal activity between Jared Kushner, other Trump associates, and the United Arab Emirates, then that could damage their relationship with the overall Trump administration. So let's get one thing clear about this entire story. Qatar, officials from Qatar, have information that they believe could implicate Jared Kushner in criminal activity with the United Arab Emirates. Robert Mueller, the special prosecutor, has requested that information from Qatar. Qatar won't hand it over because they know how bad it is for Jared Kushner, because then that's going to affect their relationship with the President of the United States. That's a plausible defense, I guess, for those officials from Qatar. You don't want to make waves. You don't want to interfere with another country's, investigations. But it's also one that I don't completely buy. Here's a couple other possibilities of why Qatar refuses to hand over this particular information. First and foremost, they could be lying. They may not have any information whatsoever. However, they have literally nothing to gain from lying. So I don't know that that's possible. Two, it might involve some of their own people, and they don't want to get roped into this as well. So that's why they're saying, no, we're not going to hand it over. That, to me, seems like the most plausible explanation here. I understand they probably don't want to make waves with the Trump administration because they know how psychotic that guy is. But at the same time, if they came forward and helped to root out corruption in the United States, I think it would probably be a much better situation for them rather than coming forward and saying, yeah, we've got all this horrible information on Jared Kushner, but you can't have it because we don't want to ruin our relationship over here. Yeah, again, not really buying it. But the whole takeaway from the story is that there apparently is information out there that implicates Jared Kushner and others in criminal activity. And if that exists, Robert Mueller, special prosecutor, needs to do whatever he has to do, whatever legal avenues he has to take in order to get his hands on that information. This is not just about taking down the Trump administration and getting those bastards out of the White House. This is about rooting out criminal conduct at the highest level of our government. If these were Democrats in office, I'd be saying the same thing. We need to know who is breaking the law, who is violating ethics rules, and who is abusing the power of their office. And so far, Jared Kushner looks like the kind of guy who, based on the evidence out there, has done all of those things and probably a whole lot more.
It is Wednesday, the 14th of March of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. It is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. That's our daily special, and I guess we'll just have to have a slice of pie for Pie Day. Yes, it is National Pie Day. And sad news, Stephen Hawking passed away. We say last night, but he passed away on Pi Day, which seems rather appropriate for a physicist. And I think that we are quite lucky to have lived at the same time that Stephen Hawking graced us with his presence. I can say that I was lucky to be alive when Einstein was alive. Though he died the year I was born, I like to think that he was in my lifetime too. Okay, well, Connor Lamb pulled it off in Pennsylvania, and there's a lot of purity trolls out there. He's not a Democrat. And they even say that on Fox Friends. Fox and Friends, they say that. He's not a Democrat. Well, that's why I keep telling people, you know, if we got rid of the Republican Party, which may happen because they are traitors and have a lot of rubles in their campaign coffers, and if they ever die as a party, we'll still have a two-party system because Democrats, I mean, by their nature, I mean, that's a multi-party system right there. So, Tillerson got sacked, and now they want to put Pompeo in. We're going to talk a bit about that today. This, starting off, Qatar officials deciding to shield Kushner from the Mueller probe. And we had mentioned this yesterday or Monday, that they don't want to get involved in the Mueller probe because apparently the Qatars believe that the Trump administration has some kind of longevity, as if they're going to get help to maintain their power. And if that's the case, well, you certainly don't want to offend them. Huh. Very interesting. Theresa May this morning has expelled 23 Russian diplomats for being undeclared spies. Donald Trump still thinks it's a 400-pound guy sitting on a sofa somewhere that put together that nerve agent that Skripal and his daughter were poisoned with. Another Russian, we mentioned this too, another Russian found dead. He was convicted of, quote, fraud, and they took all of his money and put it into the kleptocracy mob government that is Putin and Russia. And this guy was living in England, and he was conveniently found hanged. This happens quite a bit. That's another one of those convenient ways to die when you're on the outs with Vlad. The convenient hanging. So, UN is siding with Great Britain on, possible sanctions against Russia for using this nerve agent. But the President of the United States and none of his administration will say anything about it. They can't say Russia, except for Tillerson. He did, and then he got fired. And I'm no big fan of Tillerson. I got to tell you, I think that probably what happened, the reason that Tillerson turned on Vlad, because remember, Tillerson got the Friendship Medal. I think what happened is that the pipeline deal fell through. Or maybe when it got close, Vlad did what he always does, and that's muscle everybody out. And any agreement he made with them is null and void because he's got what you had anyway. I think that's what happened. It was just business. It's not personal. It's just business. Okay, well, what's on the rest of the menu today for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays? Well, in a victory for voting rights, Democrats in the Kentucky House of Representatives managed to defeat a voter suppression bill pushed by the GOP. It's a blue wave, folks, blue wave. An ex-aide to New York Governor Cuomo was found guilty of taking bribes. I'm shocked. And an Illinois contractor who authored several Christian books and bid for Trump's border wall is charged with 2 other men of bombing a mosque and a women's clinic. Only the best come to the Trump administration. After the break, we'll move to the chef's table to examine a report that reveals multinational companies found even more ways to avoid taxes following the financial crisis. And Mike Pompeo, Trump's pick to replace Tillerson at state, has a history of preferring war and extrajudicial killings over diplomatic talks and peaceful solutions. The State of War Department. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. School walkout is happening today, and I unfortunately got into a bit of a discussion on my brother's Las Vegas survivor page. Just as a reminder, my brother, an ex-law enforcement officer and currently an actor, was in the kill zone in Vegas and got out. He's okay. But he started a survivor page and administers it. And I passingly look at what's going on there. And, I should also remind folks that my brother is a Trump bro. Kind of funny. I don't want to get too much into it. But he did not go to college. And so that's always telling. But regardless, the attitude on the page, I tend to just, stay away. There's a lot of people there and there are a lot of people had been involved in that massacre. And I never want to tell anyone that their way of coping is right or wrong. People cope the way that they cope. But I do have a knee-jerk reaction when people attack Sandy Hook and are now attacking the Parkland school kids. And I couldn't take it anymore. I know what you do is just, go away. Don't look at it anymore. But they were, many on the page were accusing the Parkland school kids of really being brainwashed by a bunch of adults with a political agenda. And I just said, that's wrong. No, that assessment is wrong. Of course, then and the alternative to the walkout, many of these people have kids and they're not allowing their kids to walk out, absolutely forbidding it. And some have kids who actually understand their parents' point of view because, kids do that. And so the big takeaway is that, people should be doing random acts of kindness for each other. It just kills me how the right wing just co-ops all the stuff that we hippies, before I became a punk, we hippies talked about. Now, they're all just, we got to have random acts of kindness. A bunch of redneck hippies, I guess now. But I just mentioned that, prayers are never enough. Good works have to be part of it too. And, of course, that caused an uproar. And the takeaway from that side is I was attacking the post and the poster. But I wasn't doing that. I was taking issue with a assessment. And, with an issue, not with the whole post. People cope the way they cope. And what bothered me is that, okay, let's say that the Parkland school kids, in their way of healing, they are looking at some activity in which they feel they're doing good. Some people, when tragedy occurs, dive into knitting. Or they make quilts for people. Or they work at the animal shelter, the old folks' home. They dive into housework, gardening. However it is that people use an activity to cope, that's what they're doing. Okay, let's just say that. But my hackles were raised when a group of survivors were attacking another group of survivors for the way they were coping. And I got to tell you, no one dares address how these people are coping. Don't you dare. And so that caused a bit of an uproar, and I think that the cabal of adults brainwashing kids are not who the Vegas survivor group thinks it is. The cabal of adults, I would think, would be the NRA, who have brainwashed people into believing that they can have a weapon of war and the Constitution says they can. No. And this is the other thing. You say, no, we want to take weapons of war out of the hands of civilians. Then they say, you want to take our guns away. No, we want to take weapons of war out of the hands of civilians. Put it in a well-regulated armory. And if you are qualified to be in a well-regulated militia, you get to be able to carry that well-regulated weapon of war under orders of a well-regulated superior. Otherwise, you're stuck with a wimp gun like a .44 Magnum. They just won't accept it. It's all or nothing. Oh, if you take one gun away, you're taking them all. No, we're taking weapons of war out of the hands of civilians. You cannot have those. And so their idea is that, we'll address this simply by getting kids to treat each other better. That's what will stop it. Well, that's one way. There's no magic bullet, no pun intended. It's multifaceted. It's changing people's attitude about how they treat each other, but how about why do you need a gun then? Guns are a tool, yes. And what does the tool do? It kills people. It doesn't route out a hole for a door handle. It doesn't drill a pilot hole for a screw. It kills things. And when you go to the firing range, there's a lot of human body silhouettes that you get to kill. So yeah, I think maybe we do need to change our attitudes. And the cabal of adults who have been brainwashing our kids are not the ones saying, maybe we should try to get along without the use of guns. I don't see how they are prevailing. And also, video games didn't cause this guy in Vegas to fire down on that crowd of people, killing 70-some and injuring hundreds. All right, let's get on with that was somewhat of a rant, but I had to do it. Okay, a victory for voting rights. It's a blue wave, folks, a blue wave. Matthew Chapman out of Share Blue Media penned this. Republicans in Kentucky wanted to make it harder to vote, but they failed. Okay, so House Bill 215, sponsored by Republican State Representative James Tipton, this is in Kentucky, by the way, would have imposed a new requirement on voters to present a government-issued photo ID to vote. You have to go to the International Space Station as part of our new Space Force and get it stamped there. I bet. Okay. Well, according to the Lexington Herald Leader reporter Daniel DeRochers, while Republicans command a majority in the chamber, they do not have enough votes to advance bills in committee without Democratic support. That's called checks and balances. Following a call to action and testimony by the Kentucky ACLU, Democrats voted as one to block the bill from advancing to a full floor debate. Wow. Like in solidarity. Amazing. Bills to require government-issued photo ID to vote are popular in red states. They are sold erroneously as a measure against voter fraud, because voting is a fraud by its very definition to these people who want to keep you from voting. Anything that would, possibly take them from power has to be a fraud. Well, but most voter fraud is not committed in person, of course. We all know that. All these bills do is make it harder for millions of lower-income people without identification to vote. Well, everybody has a driver's license. No, they don't. Because not everybody drives. Jesus. Maintaining access to the polls is critical in Kentucky. The governor's race will occur in 2019. Furthermore, the state's congressional and legislative maps are not gerrymandered, but very likely will be if unified Republican control remains in 2020. Republicans only assumed full control of the state of Kentucky last year and wasted no time pushing a radical conservative agenda. They were the first state to approve kicking jobless people out of Medicaid, which Governor Matt Bevin justified by claiming Medicaid actually makes people sicker. They also banned unions from negotiating agreements with employers to protect their membership. Other aspects of their agenda, however, have hit snags. The GOP plan to drastically cut teacher pensions has been met with outrage and resistance. Even in a state that overwhelmingly backed Trump, Republicans in Kentucky have overreached. Democrats have sent a clear signal that limiting access to the ballot is off the table. Next article up here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Is out of Reuters by reporting by Brendan Pearson with editing by Susan Thomas. A former aide to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo was found guilty by a Manhattan jury of agreeing to take bribes from executives at two companies seeking to do business with the state government. I'm shocked. The verdict against Joseph Percoco is the highest profile federal corruption conviction in New York since the 2015 convictions of two former leading state legislators, which were later overturned. Percoco's lawyers could not immediately be reached for comment because they're trying to find out who to bribe to reduce these charges. This conviction. In this reporter's opinion, of course. Well, Cuomo, a Democrat. Yeah, you have to call yourself a Democrat in New York, no matter what. Who is up for re-election this year, has not been charged with wrongdoing. Michael. Percoco was indicted on bribery and conspiracy charges in November of 2016. Prosecutors said he took bribes from Peter Gilbreth Kelly, an executive at the energy company Competitive Power Ventures, and from Stephen Aiello and Joseph Girardi, founders of the real estate company Core Development. Sound like money laundering operations to me, but hey, the three executives were on trial alongside Percoco. Aiello was found guilty on Tuesday of one count of conspiracy, while Girardi was acquitted of all charges. Dawn Dearden, a spokeswoman for the prosecution, said. The jury said it was deadlocked on charges against Kelly. Lawyers for Aiello, Girardi, and Kelly could not immediately be reached. Now, prosecutors have said that Kelly bribed Percoco by giving his wife, Lisa Percoco, a mostly no-show job that paid $90,000 a year for 3 years in an ultimately unsuccessful effort to win favorable treatment from state officials for 2 power plant projects. Interesting. They said Aiello and Girardi paid cash bribes through shell companies to get favorable treatment for development of a parking lot. Now, some people might think that, a parking lot is like really bottom feeding, but those can be pretty damn lucrative. Sometimes more than building a building on it. I know. We've had to weigh. My buddies and I, when we had our little development company, we weighed a couple of times whether to develop a parking lot into a student housing condo complex or just keep it as a parking lot, because the money penned out I don't know, maybe a lot less work just to keep it a parking lot. But we like to put hammer to nail, so, Okay. The nearly 6-week trial took an unexpected turn in early February when the prosecutor's star witness, former Cuomo aide Todd Howe, was arrested after admitting on the witness stand that he had violated his cooperation agreement. You don't do that on the stand in front of the prosecutors, especially after you've agreed to them, okay, I'll tell you what I know, let me go. All right. Aiello and Girardi are expected to face a second trial on separate charges that they took part in a bid rigging scheme involving a $1 billion development project in Buffalo, New York. The case is one of a series of high-profile corruption prosecutions launched by former U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara. Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver, a Democrat, and former State Senate Leader Dean Skelos, a Republican, were both convicted of taking bribes in 2015, but their convictions were overturned by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. Of course, prosecutors have said they plan to try both men again. Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, is an article by Bob Brigham out of Raw Story. Federal authorities yesterday announced charges against 3 Illinois men suspected of the August bombing of an Islamic center and attempted November bombing of a woman's health clinic. Michael B. Harry, 47, Joe Morris, age 22, Michael McWhorter, age 29, of Clarence, were arrested on gun charges. The August 5th explosion at the Dar al-Farouk Islamic Center in Bloomington, Minnesota, resulted in no injuries, but 5 people were in the building at the time. The bomb targeting the woman's health practice in Champaign on November 7th was unsuccessfully detonated. They drove from Illinois to Minnesota. They crossed state lines to commit a crime, blowing things up. Yeah, well, there is more to the story because this contractor, I said, wrote a series of, quote, Christian books and placed a bid to build the border wall. Funny, they're not from Whitefish, Idaho. I thought those were the only people that got contracts like that. Maybe they should have gone to Whitefish, Idaho. Okay, the attempted bombing of the Women's Health Clinic, which provides abortion services, failed after a PVC pipe bomb thrown through a window failed and did not detonate. Anti-government extremism researcher and writer J.J. McNabb posted a copy of the federal complaint. One confidential source cited in the complaint reported seeing illegal firearms that were fully automatic, M4s, video jammers, and tannerite. You know, that's an explosive that will really, really blow up big time when you hit it with a high-velocity rifle shell. Nice, huh? Now, an email tip sent to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, ATF, claimed the suspect has been buying a lot of weird chemicals. I thought he was making meth because he has science things like beakers too, but he said no. It was for an inner shredder. He said the N-word. He was going to shred those little inners. Nice, huh? I was afraid someone will get hurt if someone doesn't do something, the tip sender worried. I also sent something about it to the newspaper, so if you just blow it off like you did that school shooter kid in Florida, the press will know you got a tip, so you better check it out. Okay, well, I guess they would go after the message guy maybe. But no, they went after these suspects. McWhorter allegedly admitted to FBI agent Smith, what? Men in Black? That he was aware of the illegal firearms. McWhorter explained that 2 of the AR-15 rifles had illegally been converted to full auto, and the 2 were way too damn short under federal law. Come on. Anyway, they're not assault weapons. You're using the wrong term. The same suspect admitted that the gang committed a home invasion robbery of a Hispanic drug dealer in Indiana. Remember when they did that in the southwestern border state? People got death penalty for that. And they went in and took over a Hispanic home, and the guy wasn't a drug dealer, and they killed the daughter and the father, and the mom got shot in the back but survived and was able to turn them in and won. These were the border patriot people. Wow. Almost like a copycat. And the group were armed with automatic weapons and posed as law enforcement, claiming to have a search warrant when they pulled off those hits. And they also admitted to 3 robberies of Walmart stores in Illinois. Almost like Walmart stores are magnets for crime. And Hari, the older guy, said he was starting a global security firm to build President Donald Trump's big, beautiful wall. And he's the guy that also wrote a bunch of Christian books. And that's why they had to bomb the mosque and the Women's Health Clinic. They were on a mission from God. Okay, let's get to our break, and we'll come back and go through weather from around the world. Finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
This is a Radio Labour report recorded on Tuesday, March 13th, 2018. I'm Mark Boulanger. The Global Union, which represents teachers and other education workers, has started a program to help unions renew themselves as they confront new challenges. Education International represents more than 30 million workers who are members of 400 labor organizations. One of the organizations EI asked for advice on how unions can renew themselves is Malaysia Academic Movement. Robert Jayakumar Nathan is a senior lecturer at Malaysia's Multimedia University.
I'd like to talk about three things in relation to union renewal in Malaysia. Number one, why is it important to have union renewal? I think the challenges are different as we change to different generations. Union renewal is important to stay abreast to new challenges that is facing society. It is also to ensure there is a succession from seniors to younger union members, so the struggle continues and new leaders can take on the struggles. And there are always new challenges faced by the new generations, new challenges for new generations. The challenges are never the same. Some similarities, but new types of challenges faced by new generations could best be addressed by this generation itself. Number two, what can union do to address this? I think union certainly needs young leaders. Young leaders could be paired with seniors. So young leaders may have limited experience, but if you can pair them up with their seniors, they could address issues better. It's also a form of mentoring. Number three, empower young leaders to run projects. Let them have experience on being leaders and run small-scale projects nationwide that will train them to become more mature leaders. And number three, what can EI do to help local unions for union renewal? Quickly, EI can continue to engage unions in running projects and organizing get-together, where we come together and do activities together. This is Robert from Move Malaysia.
Now here with his Labour Hotspot report is Labour Start correspondent Derek Blackadder.
Our hotspot this week was the USA, where unions anxiously await a court decision that could drastically undermine their ability to function, and where a huge teachers' strike against the odds looks to have inspired workers across the country. Public sector unions are awaiting a decision from the United States Supreme Court that will likely have an impact on their financial resources. The so-called Janus case is funded by a variety of far-right and anti-union individuals and organizations, led by the National Right to Work Foundation. Janus seeks to deny public sector unions the right to collect what are called agency fees from workers who benefit from being in a unionized workplace, but who choose not to become full members of the union. The case seeks to allow workers to become what are called free riders, workers getting all the benefits of membership in the union without having to contribute time or money to the union that is providing those benefits. In the United States, this is often misleadingly referred to as the right to work. American unions are already barred from spending regular dues money on political action. Should the Right to Work Foundation succeed, unions will likely see a drastic reduction in their resources, but they will still be subject to legal and financial penalties if they fail to fully represent everyone in the workplaces covered by their collective agreements. It is expected that the case will go against the labor movement. In preparation, public sector unions are engaged in internal organizing, explaining the benefits of membership and what is needed to ensure that those benefits are maintained and extended. That task became easier this month as the massive West Virginia teachers' strike inspired unions and workers across the United States. West Virginia is a state where local right-to-work laws already apply, and yet in a 9-day strike with near unanimous support, the teachers' union was able to win a wage increase much larger than average. This it did with widespread public support and right in the heart of a region which overwhelmingly supported Trump in the last election. Already, teachers and other public sector workers across the United States are studying the West Virginia experience and looking to apply the lessons quickly before the Janus decision is released and takes effect. This is Derek Blackadder from Labour Start, reporting for Radio Labour.
And that's it. International labor news you can use. I'm Mark Belanger. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with a selection of the day's top world news headlines. The Russian government has until midnight London time to respond to allegations from British Prime Minister Theresa May that it was responsible for the poisoning of a former Russian spy, Sergei Skripal, earlier this month.
It is now clear that Mr. Skripal and his daughter were poisoned with a military-grade nerve agent of a type developed by Russia.
May told the House of Commons Monday that Russia was either directly responsible for the attempted murder or had recklessly allowed chemical agents to slip out of its control. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Tuesday that Moscow couldn't cooperate with Britain unless it received samples of the alleged chemical agents, though it's unclear if that statement amounted to Russia's formal reply to Theresa May.
Should there be no credible response, we will conclude that this action amounts to an unlawful use of force by the Russian state against the United Kingdom.
According to Voice of America, May is reportedly weighing whether a Russian-sponsored attack on British soil would trigger Article 5 of the NATO Treaty, which allows for collective self-defense in the event one ally is attacked. And the UN is urging Central and South American countries not to send migrants from Venezuela back to their home country, saying, quote, a significant number are in need of international protection. That announcement Monday marks the closest the UN has come to labeling those fleeing political and economic turmoil in Venezuela as refugees, a characterization Venezuela's government strongly refutes. Case in point, the outlet Tillerson, which is partially funded by the Venezuelan government, was quick to run an article that muddled the UN's assessment, implying that Venezuelans leaving home were migrants since they'd voluntarily chosen to leave. In January, the UN Refugee Agency reported that at least 480,000 Venezuelans have fled the country to seek refugee or other legal protections abroad. Luke Vargas, The United Nations.
If you go to the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll find on the right-ish the chat room link. And that's a good way to contact us if you have any questions, concerns, issues, or requests. And our roaring girl, Kelly Lincoln, monitors that quite diligently throughout the day. So if she doesn't get back to you right away, she will. To the leftish of the chat room link there are the contribute donate buttons. We are still figuring a way of migrating to the new accounts, but we'll let you know how that's going. But thank you. Your generosity continues to help us pay the bills. And you can contact me at Justice Putnam on Twitter. Join us at Netroots Radio on Twitter as well. We're on Facebook as Netroots Radio. And I'm there too, but I've only just recently begun posting political stuff. It used to be just for family, but I left it open, and now it's migrated into something else. And let's see. I post show notes and links for the show on Daily Co's in my diary about 10 minutes before showtime. And that's on Daily Co's. You can find me there as Justice Putnam. Podcasts of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy can be found by way of Spreaker, and then that emanates out to TuneIn and Stitcher and all the others. So find us. YouTube, even on YouTube, though I'm not putting on the camera. Not that early in the morning for me. Forget it. Okay, weather from around the world. Well, we start off with weather from around the world, and we begin along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast. It is currently 40 degrees. It is raining right now. Winds are out of the south-southwest about 2 miles per hour. They will be picking up in just a couple of hours out of just the west at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Our wind advisory is, we were active, but that ended in terms of its activity yesterday late. But winds, still 5 to 10. That's not so bad. We'll be a tad cooler today, only about 50 degrees. We're going to have a low tonight of 34 with continuing rain. And then tomorrow, we may have a mix of rain and snow if we dip below that 34-degree low, which is possible. We expect, we're expecting just from the rain from today through tomorrow, a little bit more than an inch. All right, fine. Be that way. Air quality is good at 5 parts per million. Pressure is falling at 29.89 inches. Visibility is about 3 miles. It says 7, but where I'm at, it's really 3. Humidity is at 90%, and it is raining. Quite a chilly rain, too, at 40 degrees. Okay, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people live around the world. London is 55 degrees and sunny. Paris is 58 degrees and sunny. Rome is 60 degrees, partly cloudy, but they do have a rain advisory with flash floods that could impact infrastructure. And if you've ever been to Rome, you know. And I have been. Okay, Kiev is 33 with fog. Kabul is 51 and fair. Hong Kong, 65 and cloudy. Tokyo, 55 and clear. Sydney, Australia, 71 and clear. San Francisco, California, 48 degrees and cloudy. And New York, 34 degrees and sunny. But you have a snow advisory, so beware. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people live around the world. All right, starting off here at the chef's table in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Looks like since 2000, the year 2000, the amount businesses pay in taxes, and these are multinational corporations, by the way, companies, what they paid in taxes has dropped by 1/3. Wow. Well, as the current president of the United States says, if you can't figure out how to game the system and not pay taxes, you're a loser. Where I thought that we all paid our taxes because, it was for all of us. And we had to fill the potholes. Okay, Cody Fenwick from Alternet penned this. As growing inequality has steadily increased in American society, major multinational companies have been benefiting from lower and lower tax rates the world over, according to a new report from the Financial Times. Uh-oh. The paper conducted a study of the taxes paid by the top 10 multinationals across 9 different sectors. These companies now pay 9% less in taxes than they did before the 2008 financial crisis. And since 2000, the amount they paid in taxes has dropped on average by 1/3 from 34% to 24%. Okay, well, these results highlight how the long downward trend in corporate tax rates set by the countries that make up the OECD continued at a time when taxes on consumers and workers are rising. After the financial crisis, reporter Rochelle Toplensky wrote, there's big-time lawsuits in Ireland right now for some sweetheart tax deals for various companies like Apple. And looks like it might have been illegal, and the EU is tasked with ferreting all this out so that, the countries like Ireland can afford, fill the potholes. Toplensky notes that since 2008, personal taxes in rich countries have risen 6%, while corporate tax rates have fallen by 5%. As many countries, especially in Europe, embraced austerity for us, and they get to buy big old mega yachts. Because that's austerity for them. They were going to buy even a bigger mega yacht, but they only got to buy the not so big mega yacht. Okay. All right. Let's see. When the GOP passed its massive tax overhaul in 2017, cutting the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, Republicans frequently argue that we need to slash rates in order to attract more companies from other countries. But if all other countries embrace this logic, we'll all be blind. Let's mix the metaphors. We end up in a race to the bottom to benefit corporations, a phenomena we already see at the state level. These low rates and the fact that corporations continually find ways to avoid paying what they owe costs the government money needed for key social programs like, filling the potholes, let alone feeding starving kids. Or how about your grandparents that you conveniently forgot because you were too busy trying to figure out how to pay lower taxes? I know the argument. I'm taking care of my parents, you take care of yours. Well, we all take care of everybody's parents, don't we? In the end. Conservatives then use these deficits, which they intentionally increase, as an excuse to cut government spending that's meant to help the kinds of people who see no benefit from a corporate tax cut.
Dansez maintenant sous l'été, les pieds nus dans le sable. Dansez maintenant et jetez vos ennuis dans les vagues qui dansent.
Okay, well, Mike Pompeo has already been had a hearing to become CIA director. There's some question whether he will pass the next nominating process for possibly Secretary of State. That's who Trump wants. And but he's already cleared the nominating process for CIA director, where a lot of people didn't like him. Just letting you know. And he's never been one, and let's put it this way, he's fairly, before put in the limelight by Donald Trump, was little known except for his extremist Tea Party wacko tinfoil hat views. Okay? Let's be clear. And he made him CIA director. Did you know that he structurally changed the CIA while he was there? That the existing department that had discovered the collusion between Trump and the Russians and had all of the intel on it, instead of them reporting to a deputy undersecretary and then another layer, just checks and balances, he made it so that they reported directly to him. And he's a Trump toady. Jeez. Okay. Well, he was put into a predicament because sometimes he would wake up and at least passingly acknowledge that, maybe a hostile foreign power is trying to control us, but maybe we can ride that tiger. Okay. Well, some Pompeo's... Oh, I'm sorry. This is by D. Parvaz out of Think Progress. Pompeo supported a torture program before he suddenly opposed it, is hawkish on North Korea, opposes the Iran nuclear deal, and has sought to expand the drone program, allowing the CIA to carry out strikes in Afghanistan. It's clear today in Kabul, as you heard from the weather report. And that's a bad day for wedding parties in Kabul when it's clear. Because when the drones fly, people in wedding parties die. Over and over and over again. In an impromptu presser on the White House's South Lawn, Trump told reporters yesterday that he replaced Tillerson, who he fired, while the Secretary of State was on an official trip in Africa. Replaced him with Pompeo because, quote, Trump saying, "We disagreed on things. When you look at the Iran deal, I think it's terrible. I guess it was okay. I wanted to either break it or do something, and he felt a little bit differently, so we were not really thinking the same. But with Mike Pompeo, we have a very similar thought process," which is scary, because when Trump says that Maxine Waters has a low IQ problem, and then you look at a picture of Trump looking up at the sun during an eclipse without filter glasses, who is afflicted with a low IQ, huh? And he was told And he still did it. Pompeo has been an unpopular figure among human rights advocates for years. When Trump nominated him as CIA director, Human Rights Watch outright called for the Senate to reject his confirmation, citing his stance on torture. The surveillance program, whistleblowers, he called for Edward Snowden's execution, and he hates Muslims, who he said were potentially complicit in attacks against the U.S. and are a threat to the country. Because, well, you know, the Jews are a little occupied right now, but we'll get to them. We have some advanced shock troops already working on it. Don't worry. He has called Guantanamo Bay prison a gold mine of intelligence because they tell you what you want to hear. And he believes prisoners there are treated exceptionally well because, you know, look, they get to wear orange suits when it's about 38 degrees out, sleeping in an open tent. Assuming Pompeo gets confirmed by the Senate, he is an odd choice for the country's top diplomat. In 2014, Pompeo, then a Republican lawmaker from Kansas, told reporters at a roundtable meeting that a war against Iran would be preferable to signing the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. In an unclassified setting, it is under 2,000 sorties to destroy the Iranian nuclear capacity. This is not an insurmountable task for coalition forces. How nice. Well, signed between Iran, the U.S., the United Kingdom, France, China, Russia, and Germany, the JCPOA limits Iran's enrichment program in exchange for sanctions relief. Trump said he wants to tear up the deal, and if he does that, what's going to stop North Korea from just doing what they want to do and make a little bit more enriched uranium for a rainy day? Yeah, okay. Well, look, let's be clear. The Department of Defense as we know it was at one time, from the very beginning of our country, was called the Department of War. And somebody from, had some PR background and said, like, maybe we should change this. This seems like a little aggressive, doesn't it? And they said, yeah, we can still be aggressive, but let's just change the branding. And so they became the Department of Defense. Because essentially that's what we are supposed to do. We're defending democracy, not ramming it down people's throat. Well, even though we do that. But we're defending democracy. So maybe the State Department is on the list to have their name changed to the State Department of War. Because if you're a diplomat and you hate diplomacy, and you're going to ram stuff down people's throat, whether they like it or not, make them an offer they can't refuse. State Department, give me a break. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. But broadcasting on Netroots Radio goes on. And, of course, there's some breaking news as we speak. And remember, there is the march today. And kids, get out there. I want to remind folks, and also those ones who have hammered me saying, oh, they're just a political agenda. What do kids know? When I was a kid, we marched, and we marched, and we marched, and then we got old enough to vote, and then we stopped a war. So, do not discount the power of youth. So, with that said, we will visit with you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie d'un novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.